A client once told me something that really made me pause. She said, I don't understand why I keep gaining weight. I only eat healthy foods. So I asked her to run me through what she would normally eat in a day. She said for breakfast, she normally had freshly squeezed natural fruit juices. She snacks on granola bars and only buys low fat products. On paper, this sounds healthy, right? But once we looked closer into her diet, we realized that these foods were not as healthy as she thought. And that's when I realized a lot of people are not eating badly, but they are just being misled. Hi, my name is Susie. I am a dietitian based in Yaoundé, Cameroon. I am passionate about helping people understand nutrition beyond what social media and food packaging tells you. Because in today's world, eating healthy is not just about food choices, but understanding the food choices that we make. So on today's video, we're going to be talking about healthy foods which are not as healthy as we think. There's something called the health halo effect, and this is when food companies use certain words to make their products sound healthier than they actually are. I'm sure majority of us have come across words on food packaging like organic, natural, diet, low fat, right? This sounds healthy, doesn't it? But it can be very misleading. Let's start with fruit juice. Most people hear fruits and think, oh, it's fruit, so obviously it must be very healthy. But think about this. How many oranges can you eat at once? Two, maybe three at most. But in a glass of orange juice, you are drinking between five and six oranges. The problem is not with the quantity of fruits found in these fruit juices. The problem is that while making these fruit juices, we tend to rip them off their fibers to be able to get the liquid concentrate. Now, this liquid concentrate is concentrated with sugar, and this sugar rapidly enters our bloodstreams as opposed to when we consume fruits in whole or as smoothies and they have the fibers mixed in them. Now, research has shown that higher intake of fruit juices is linked to increased risks of type 2 diabetes. It's also linked to increased risks of obesity, heart disease, and increased mortality. And for those of us who do not know what increased mortality is, it's increased risks of death. So the simple truth is, instead of fruit juices nourishing your body, they tend to overload your body with sugars. Next, let's look at breakfast cereals and granola. They look healthy. They sound healthy, especially when you go to buy and the package says whole grains, high in fiber. But flip and look at the ingredients list. That's when you discover that a lot of these things are packed with artificial flavoring, additives, sugars, preservatives, and all of these things fall under what we call ultra processed foods. Research has shown that consuming ultra processed foods is linked to increased risks of heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. You eat these things thinking that you're starting your day healthy, but instead you're starting your day with sugar. A pro tip: whenever you go to buy your cereals or granola or whatever food you intend to buy, please make sure that the ingredient list is very short and you don't find names that you cannot pronounce. By the time you start seeing added sugar, preservatives, some chemical names that we don't even know how to pronounce, please, my dear, run. These foods are usually ultra processed. Let's talk about low fat products. This one is a bit tricky. When fat is removed from food, it tends to lose its flavoring. So, how do manufacturers compensate for this loss of flavor? They do so by adding sugar, thickeners, preservatives. And yes, you go to the market and you buy low fat products thinking they are healthy, but instead you are consuming a lot of sugars without knowing. So, again, I would like to reiterate, make sure you read your ingredient list, and please, low fat does not equate healthy. Next, let's look at smoothies. For this, it depends. Smoothies can be very healthy. At the same time, they can be sugar bombs. It all depends on how you make your smoothie. Let's look at two case scenarios, right? The first, I wake up in the morning and decide to have a glass of fruit smoothie. I blend pineapples and bananas and then add a little bit of water and drink. Let's look at another case scenario. Another person wakes up and decides to have smoothies. They put pineapples, they put mangoes, they put banana, they put apples, they put watermelon, they put raspberries, they put orange, they put tangerine, they add 2 to 3 teaspoons of honey. They add something that makes it thick. They add something else like, my God, my God. At the end of the day, you have multiple sources of sugar in that small glass of smoothie that you are making. That's just a lot of sugar in one drink. And again, you're putting yourself at risk of type 2 diabetes. And let's keep in mind, because you're drinking it, you have the tendency to consume more than your body needs. So please, guys, I'm not saying we should not drink our smoothies. I'm saying let's be mindful and let's reduce the quantity of fruits or the variety of fruits that we put in a glass of smoothie. Fruits are already sweet, so you don't need to add the honey or the extra sugar or the highly sweetened milk and yogurts that people add in smoothies. That's what changes a smoothie from being healthy to an unhealthy drink. Hi guys, quick interception. It does come. I realized that I spoke a lot about granola bars and it might give people a false sense of all granola bars are unhealthy. So I'm sorry for oversimplifying that piece of information, but just to give you people a tip, when you go to buy granola bars and you see that it's made up of oats, well, most granola bars have as base oats. So when they're made up of oats, dried fruits and nuts, then majority of the times those are healthy options. But when it goes beyond oats, dry fruit, nuts, and you start seeing other things like added sugars and different type of flavoring that moves away from the natural forms or from natural ingredients, then they can be unhealthy. So I decided to give that quick piece of information. Let's get back into the video. I had a client who once told me that she does not eat junk food. She only eats healthy snacks. So I asked her, what does she usually snack on? She said granola bars, organic biscuits, diet this, diet that, organic this, organic that. When we checked the ingredients list, we discovered that most of these snacks were high in sugars, highly processed, and contained little to no real nutrients. The key problems with these snacks is that one, they are easy to overeat. Two, they give us a false sense of eating healthy, so we tend to eat them the more. And like I said, they are ultra processed. I took time out to read the nutrition fact sheet of a brand that produces granola bars, but they produce it in different flavors. So one will be chocolate chips, the other will be, let's say, yogurt, for example. And I discovered that the number of kilocalories varied according to the main ingredients in the bar, if that makes sense. One serving of this one would have 220 kilocalories. One serving of the other type will have 200 kilocalories. And then I'll go to check proteins, because I've realized that majority of people eat these bars for their protein intake. You will see an entire serving of 220 kilocalories has just 1 gram of protein, and the other one has about 3 to 5 grams of protein. So you see, you might be consuming some of these things thinking that, oh, they're healthy or they provide you with the necessary nutrients that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, it's just flavors, packaging, and a lot of process. So please keep in mind that a biscuit or a snack does not automatically become healthy just because it's being labeled as organic or diet or low fat. Alternatives to some of these snacks, especially in our Cameroonian settings, we have groundnuts, we have fresh boiled corns, we have fruits and vegetables, we have unsweetened yogurt. So please, but again, I would like to reiterate the importance of reading your labels. Once the labeling is long, it's not as organic or as healthy as you may think. It is important to remember that healthy snacking is not about what the package says, but it's about how close that food is to its natural form. And I've seen over and over and over again people trying their best to eat healthy but end up choosing foods that are working against them instead of for them, because true health comes from what the food actually is, but not what the food claims to be. If this video changed the way you see your food, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone. Leave me a comment down below to let me know which of these foods surprised you the most. See you guys on my next video. Bye bye.